Hello, Bible readers. It is Thursday, February 4th. We're reading from 1 Kings chapter 7, 2 Chronicles chapter 4, and 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 17 to chapter 4, verse 18. To continue what I was saying yesterday about Thessalonians, we need to know about the context. We need to know what they call historical criticism. I don't mean criticize as though here's what's wrong with it, but here's how to understand it. And so we critically think about the history, and we critically think about the literary techniques of the day and how letters were used, what the occasion may have been for Paul to write such a letter. And so for Thessalonians, there's three things to know about the context that are really going to help shape our understanding of what Paul is trying to say. Number one, and this may seem obvious to us, but Paul feels called as a Jew to bring good news to the Gentiles. Like, if you don't know that, then this letter is really going to be hard to understand. That Paul is Jewish and that he's coming from, the inner circle, you could say, of the new church back in the homeland, the Holy Land, Jerusalem and beyond, and he's bringing that good news to the Gentiles. This is his purpose as called by God. So that's number one. Number two, Thessalonica, we need to understand things about this town. It's a Roman city. It's not the intellectual capital like Athens is. It's not big like Alexandria is, which would have been the international city of its day. Thessalonica is, though, so it's not an intellectual or international city, but it is a regional trading center. And it would have been in competition with lots of other regional trading centers, cities of some importance around the area. So knowing this, we may understand Paul's understanding, his assumption that there is conflict between the church in Thessalonica and other Thessalonians. Because those other Thessalonians who haven't come to believe, they don't want to upset Rome. We can't really understand what it's like to be competing against other cities or villages or towns in your area for Rome's investment, or for your safety, or for the favor, the political favor. This is true to some extent when Minneapolis and Indianapolis are competing for Amazon to have a headquarters there, right? And so they give tax breaks and they do all that kind of thing. Imagine our federal system working in such a way where the president and all the military leaders say, we'll make a decision about whether or not to protect you from the barbarians who are threatening to destroy Alaska. But you better be nice to us. We assume we're all in the same country and all of us would be protected equally. Well, under Rome, it wasn't quite like that. And so the leaders of Thessalonica, they, kiss up to Rome. And when you've got all these Christians talking about Jesus and all this other stuff, it's like, shut up. So that's the second thing to know about Thessalonica. Number three, Paul preaches a gospel that is, we would call apocalyptic. And what we mean by that is, it's a sense that there's good and evil, a cosmic battle that's happening, and that God will bring judgment to evil, and soon. So the two sides are God and evil, good and evil, and God's going to bring judgment soon. Paul lives and paints a picture of an already but not yet world. And what I mean by that is God has already changed everything through the death and resurrection of Jesus. That's already happened. So something happened that has changed what your life is for and how your life and death are to be perceived. But God's not done. God is also going to fully rule in glorious victory, in glorious mercy and peace and grace. So the church lives in the birth-pang times, doing God's work, being God's peace in the meantime, in between now and not yet. And we're still called to that moment. So yesterday, our readings were about how God's word has relentless power. Today, we're reading about how there's concern. Paul has concern for the church's survival and moral living. Christians are called to walk a distinctive path. Do so in confidence, Paul is saying. Live that Christian life in confidence. Dave Ramsey, a famous person of our own time that talks about how to get out of debt, he says, live like no one else so that you can live like no one else. Well, that's kind of what Paul is saying to the church. Just a touch on 1 Kings and 2 Chronicles, Solomon's house takes almost twice as long as it took to build the temple. Uh-oh. You see the vanity, the priority of his self. And in 2 Chronicles, these ever-burning lampstands, kind of like an eternal flame. It's highlighted because the chronicler cares about those old traditions. I am one with my God. My God is with us, all of us, at all times and in all places.